I'm gonna push play now. What I did before. Okay. So Andy, I know this is gonna feel like Groundhog Day because we just did an entire interview and had technical difficulties. This happens, folks, and our entire interview did not record on this particular equipment for my podcast. But it did record on video equipment, which Shunagawa, thank goodness he works with you, was here. So you will be able to see that on sarahacarter.com, my full interview with Andy Chan here in South Korea. Andy Chan is the founder of the Hong Kong National Party, which has been banned in Hong Kong by the Chinese government. He is a fighter for liberty, independence, and freedom, and somebody who I have a great deal of respect for. He is standing up to China in a way that is remarkable. I've never seen anyone so brave in a long time, and somebody so young and so brilliant. Andy, during our interview, you had said something so important about China and about Hong Kong. It was a warning. And it was a way forward for the United States to work in cooperation with people like yourself who are fighting for freedom from the Chinese government in Hong Kong.
First of all, we've got to be very careful towards China. The problem with China is that Nazi China, I would say Nazi China.
Yeah, explain Nazi China, because I didn't have you explain that one.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Well, they call themselves communists, right? And they they have socialism in China, but they call that the socialism with Chinese characteristic. That means there's no socialism. The communism in China is also fake. So don't trust communists. So the truth is that they are fascists, they are Nazi. Look at what happened to the Uyghurs. They are building concentration camps. They're sending millions of people into the concentration camp, and
right.
They talk about all about the country. They sacrifice people. They have military threat. They want to expand. So, in many ways, it's Nazi. It's Nazi China. And the problem with Nazi China is that it's not just about the government, but the people. The people also support the government. The Chinese diaspora all over the world, they still think that they are Chinese, even though they're living in the Western world for over 10 years. They still work for the government.
Explain that in more detail. How do they do that? What do they utilize in order to spread the diaspora, the communist Chinese diaspora across the world?
They do it systematically. For example, they send students overseas to study, but there is a organization called Chinese Scholars and Students Association, which is directly controlled and sponsored by the Chinese embassy. So they organize the Chinese students to protest against the Tibetans, Uyghurs, or Hong Kong people. They beaten people up, and they suppress freedom of speech, and also they steal technology, they steal the knowledge from the US or from the Western world when they study and bring back to China.
So basically, they set up groups that seem very innocuous, that seem like they're just student groups, student organizations, maybe educational groups, but the people that belong to these groups very much believe in communist China and are willing to do whatever they need to for their government.
Yeah, look up to some interviews on Chinese students overseas, or you can go to interview some. If you ask them, do you think Chinese government is a good government? They say, yeah, it's a good government. Do you have any problem with that? No, no problem. How about they suppress people because of their religion? I don't care about that. No people in China care about that. So most of the Chinese people, they support the Nazi China government. And in their blood, in their mind, they always support a huge Chinese empire. This is their historical perspective. They always think that China is the center of the world. They need to expand.
Explain a little bit, because I was only going to make this one or two questions, but now I always get so fascinated when I talk to you, Andy. This is Andy Chan again, for those of you listening who may have joined us a little bit late. But he is an activist, fighter for independence from China in Hong Kong. He is the founder of the Hong Kong National Party, which was banned by sympathizers in Hong Kong to China, and he has really put his life on the line for what he believes in. True essential values that I think we as Americans understand. This is the founding of our nation was built on these same principles that Andy Chan is fighting for today. You had talked a little bit about China and the go around into Hong Kong, especially like if we put tariffs on China, if we do economic sanctions, if we don't do the same in Hong Kong, then China uses Hong Kong as a backdoor. That's what you explained earlier.
Exactly.
Explain that.
Because the U.S. Congress passed a Hong Kong Policy Act in 1992. It gives Hong Kong a special status, which is different from China. So we consider Hong Kong and China as two separate places. So when, for example, U.S. sanction on China, not necessarily sanctioning on Hong Kong. So the China can escape the sanction through Hong Kong. For example, they could pretend they are Hong Kong company, pretend they are Hong Kong people, and then they buy the technology which is banned from exporting to China. First they go into Hong Kong and then go into China. That's the back.
So it's just a runaround. It's an easy way, it's a loophole that
Yep.
we're either ignoring because we don't want to do anything, or we're allowing to happen. Do you think the people of Hong Kong, like yourself, who are fighting for freedom against the Chinese or the Chinese Communist government, do you think they'll accept the sanctions? Why should they? What are they fighting for? What are you fighting for? I mean, how devastating can these sanctions be to the citizens of Hong Kong?
Well, the protest in Hong Kong, or I would say the revolution, has been going on for 4 months in Hong Kong. Now, many people injured, some people died, some people sodomized by Hong Kong police and raped by Hong Kong police, even a young girl. So we're sacrificing a lot, and we don't want that to go on. So we want we want to use some other method to fight against China. We know that Hong Kong is so important to China. China needs Hong Kong more than Hong Kong needs China. For example, over 70% of foreign direct investment goes through Hong Kong into China, and also China, the officials, the rich people or secretary and their families, they need to transfer their properties to overseas. They don't trust themselves too, right? So they need to transfer the RMB into Hong Kong dollars and then the US dollars. So we want to destroy the economy in Hong Kong. So it starts a chain reaction to implode the Chinese economy. So once we trigger the economic crisis in China, it also trigger the political crisis in China, and then we can dissolve China. So please sanction Hong Kong, and this is the consensus, especially amongst the younger generation, amongst the young protester which is standing against tear gas and rubber bullets. We want to sanction Hong Kong, not just sanction on China, but also Hong Kong. So we can destroy the economy in Hong Kong and trigger all these things.
You had said something to me when we were trying to record this the first time, but of course technology is not always cooperative, that resonates inside me. And you had said something to the effect of, it's either our blood or our economy.
Yeah.
Explain that.
Now what you see in Hong Kong is that trusting Chinese communists. We had appeasement with Chinese communists and we trust them, we went into the one country two system, and now the consequences is that we need to pay the price with blood if we want freedom. So we know that freedom is not free, we either pay in blood or money. So why don't we pay in money instead of blood?
That's an incredible, simple statement, but I think that anybody can understand what you're saying. For those of you listening to this is Andy Chan, and I want you to read his story on SariaCarter.com. It's remarkable. But Andy, you know, you are sacrificing so much, and you have been arrested by the Chinese, by the Hong Kong government, sympathizers to China, The Chinese government is watching you. The communists are very well aware of the power of your wisdom and your voice and your fight for independence. You have to be concerned for your life. And as we talked about earlier, I mean, your family is also a target now, and your friends. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, you're standing up to one of the most powerful governments on the planet.
I can't say I can't say that I sacrifice so much compared to what the young students they suffer. As I said, men got caught in a detention camp and then sodomized, and the girl being raped, and people lost their eye because of rubber bullets, and they have serious bone fracture, lots of them. So I'm okay. I mean, I'm not sacrificing that much, but of course, in the past few years, I barred from running office in the Legislative Council. I was disqualified, the first one, and my party was banned, and yeah, everything was banned around me, and I encountered physical surveillance, and my family, my sister, boyfriend of my sister too, my friends, all of them being harassed and followed. Yeah.
I mean, think about this, you're being very humble because your voice is resonating now, not only through South Korea, where we're here now speaking, but in the United States, in Great Britain, in Europe. I mean, your name is rising because there are few people in the world willing to stand up to communist China.
May I say some more things? Because I don't want to make ourselves like a hero, because the true heroes are those students, because everyone, they have their last words in their backpack when they go to protest. They prepare to die. Really, they prepare to die because they say, if Hong Kong, there's no future in Hong Kong, there's also no future for me. So the future of Hong Kong is the future of us. They come out to fight because they see no future. It doesn't matter if they sacrifice because they have nothing. This is what they think. So they use umbrella to block rubber bullets, tear gas, and against batons of police, and now the live round from the handguns of the police. So they're true heroes.
They really are true heroes. And I think most Americans don't understand now because in some ways we take for granted all of those freedoms and liberties that are so essential to us. We forget that these same issues were what our founding fathers were up against. You know, independence and freedom from tyranny. So a lot of us don't really understand what it's like to live under an oppressive regime, one that promises the world, oh sure, they'll promise you equality, they'll promise you that everybody's equal, they'll promise you that you'll have a home, but they'll take away your freedom, they'll take away your liberty, and when you turn around and look at those promises, they're all just lies. They don't exist because socialism and communism doesn't work. I think that's what's on our side is the history, right? But you had said we forget our history, and we've talked about this. And by the way, Andy Chan and I both spoke today here in South Korea for students that feel that they're fighting this same leftist communist regime here that's growing in South Korea. Unbelievable that it's happening here in South Korea considering what North Korea has been doing to their own people now for decades. And but you know, sometimes we forget, and you were talking about history and how we forget.
Well, I need to quote President Thomas Jefferson again. He said, "The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time by the blood of tyrants and patriots." Why from time to time? Because people forget. People always forget. Our grandparents fight for freedom, democracy, and then our parents will forget, and then the third generation will suffer. And then the third generation will need to fight, and then our next generation will forget. History just repeats itself.
Well, Andy, I'm not going to forget what I've witnessed here, both here and in Japan, and what you have been fighting for in Hong Kong, and what has happened to you and the people that support you. I think it's important for us You know, and for listeners out there to understand that people like Andy Chan, leaders like him, and others out here in not just in Hong Kong or, you know, South Korea or Japan, but all over the world, there are young people fighting for the freedoms that the United States, right now, we take for granted. And remember that, we take it for granted. It's very easy to lose these essential rights and freedoms. We won't even see them disappear, and before you know it, they're gone. This is what happened in Hong Kong. This is what happens around the world. This is the fight right now here in South Korea as the government shifts and changes and communism and socialist ideas take root. And as people forget, remember, this is happening in our education systems. And we are not unique, and we are not alone. There are people all over the world striving for those same rights, striving for human dignity, and for the right to be free and independent. Andy, before I let you go, again, for the second time, because once again, I'm going to repeat, we had a problem with our technology here. So poor Andy's having to go through this interview twice. But he did a phenomenal interview, which you'll see on SaraCarter.com. It's really incredible the first time. What is your final warning? What is the last thing you want to say, or is there a message you'd like to deliver to this administration?
The last thing you want to do is trust a communist. And the worst of the worst is to trust Chinese communists. So no appeasement should be made with communists. Look at World War II. Look at how, I need to quote Winston Churchill again, Britain and France, they need to choose between dishonor and war. They chose dishonor, they will have war. You still have to face war after you have dishonor. So no appeasement. When you have appeasement with them, it will just give them opportunity to grow bigger and bigger and becomes a threat that you can't take down.
That is a threat, you're right. That is a threat that is very difficult to fight. Do you think it's one that's winnable, one that's possible in this day and age? The removal of the collapse of China.
Yes, it's possible. Now they are facing serious political crisis, economic crisis. We need to just trigger that. We need a trigger, and Hong Kong could be that trigger. Sanction Hong Kong, destroy the economy of Hong Kong. They lose Hong Kong, they do not have the US dollar going into China anymore, and then they will collapse.
I think Andy Chan has a point here. I think he's found the weapon of choice, at least for us. Andy, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for...
Thank you, Americans.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for your fight for freedom. And you will be on my podcast again. You're always welcome to come back anytime something happens in Hong Kong and you need to get a message out. You can count on me to do that and to get that message out.
Sure.
I will be by your side, Andy Chan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.